there, right? Sidewalk.
Sorry?
I said you're gonna be out there for sidewalk, right?
There is in for mayor.
Yeah, you gotta run in, right?
He's my boy.
Hmm?
I ain't putting another dog in the race. Yeah. I love Danny, don't get me wrong, but I'm not pulling.
Talking about sidewalk. The mayor, he's running all the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna support him.
Yeah.
I've already spoken to Danny a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and I said, Dan, when it comes time that you want to run again, I'll support you 100%. And I said, on the condition you don't run against Derek. That's my only condition. So, you know.
Well, we had that, you were at that one meeting where we ate and everything.
Yeah. Kind of don't understand those. I do, I suppose, because if he runs,
Term limit.
it's term limit. But if he's running again, he keeps his name out there. So I get that part of
Yeah,
it.
you can go from council to mayor.
Yeah. Or he can go from
Starts all
council.
over again.
Whereas if he doesn't run, he steps down. And nobody runs against Derek. In a year's time, Danny can run for a seat again.
What is it? Yeah, that's right.
So he's got nothing to lose, you know.
You know what I seen for the first time? I know you got turkeys all back there where you are, right?
Yeah.
Turkeys. My wife called me, she said, look at these turkeys. They were all,
Over by you?
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
You're in Doug's neighborhood?
We back up to it. I'm in
Yeah.
Forest Lakes.
Doug's over.
He's in Bay Arbor.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, no, I've been there near that corner a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can try to.
And we see turkeys all the time.
You see them coyotes running?
I haven't seen those yet.
We got a picture of two of them in the backyard.
Oh man.
Yeah. The one, Eileen went out to take a picture of him. He just kind of stood there and posed like, I'm bad.
Yeah, I think your wife sent me one on it.
Okay, yeah.
I heard on next door that somebody was walking their dog and 4 coyotes grabbed the dog. Is that? I haven't read it. I just heard it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm like,
Not that I've seen those.
I don't know.
Yeah, but they're eating well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but let's go with, there is as many turkeys as there was before.
Wow.
That's what they're doing, feed them, getting them nice and ready.
They're big, boy, I'll tell you. Okay, welcome. This is Wednesday, March 24th, 2001, and I'd like to call the Board of Adjustment meeting to order. If we would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. This time I'd like to have the swearing in process. Anybody wishing to speak on tonight's meeting, please stand, raise your hand, take the oath from the clerk.
Swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, so help you before God.
Do we have an opening? No, huh?
Pardon?
We don't have an opening, do we?
No, one alternate.
Yeah, but we don't have an opening. There's what, 5 of us?
Yeah, because
I'm feeling safe, so.
he just got upgraded, Mark got upgraded. In our other alternates back then. Okay, right now I have the citizens forum. Anybody wishing to speak on any item that's not on the agenda tonight? Free to speak? There being none, the floor is now closed. I'd like to have approval of the minutes dated February 24th, 2001.
Make a motion to go.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried all, thank you. This time I'd like to have a reading of variance 21-07, the Booker Creek variance.
One, Tatiana Childress, Interim Planning and Redevelopment Director. This is case variance 2107. This is a variance request to increase the building height from 35 feet to 45 feet, and a variance request to reduce the width of ADA parking spaces from 15 feet to 12 feet, and the variance request to reduce the number of ADA parking spaces from 15 spaces to 8 spaces. Variance request to reduce the width of the regular parking spaces from 10 feet to 9 feet in order to develop a site with a 130 square foot warehouse building in the M1 limited manufacturing district. The subject property has a zoning designation of M1 limited manufacturing zoning district and has a land use designation of industrial limited. Current site is vacant and includes a stormwater pond that was permitted as part of the DRI project. The request was reviewed against the following 10 conditions outlined in section 3.17.3 of the Land Development Code. These conditions must be affirmatively shown to exist before a variance shall be granted. The special circumstances or conditions applying to the structure or premises in questions are peculiar to such structure or premises and do not regularly apply to other structures or premises in the vicinity. Building height variance. The maximum building height in the M1 district is 35 feet. The city recently redefined the building height as the vertical distance from the design flood elevation to the highest point on the roof. The highest point on the roof for the majority of the proposed building is at 37 feet above the finished floor elevation, and the top of the proposed parapet is at 42.7 feet. The site is located in Zone X, and the design flood elevation for the building was determined to be at elevation 17 feet by applying the 18-inch rule, which requires minimum finished floor elevation to be 18 inches above the crown of the adjacent roadway. The crown of Booker Creek Boulevard adjacent to the site is at elevation 15.5, and 18 inches above that elevation is elevation 17. Typically, the DFE for the site is the same as the finished floor elevation. Due to the unique topography of the site and previously permitted pond, the finished floor elevation is proposed at elevation 19.25 feet. This 2.25 foot difference between the DFE and the finished floor elevation, as well as the architectural detail of the building parapet, result in a total building height of 45 feet above the DFE as demonstrated in Figure 1. So variance for the size of accessible parking spaces. Per section 15.8.3 of the Land Development Code, handicap accessible parking stalls shall be 15 feet in width and 20 feet in depth. The requested variance is to allow for the accessible parking spaces to be 12 feet in width and 5-foot accessible aisle to conform to the current Florida Building Code. Staff recommends that the City of Oldsmar Land Development Code should be amended in the future to reflect the proposed change because these local higher accessibility standards do not provide meaningful benefit to those with physical or visual disabilities while causing added expense challenge to the development community. Number of accessible parking spaces. The City of Oldsmar Land Development Code requires 5% of the proposed parking spaces to be accessible. There are 260 proposed spaces, resulting in the 13 required accessible spaces for the site. Per current Florida building code, only 8 accessible spaces would be required, and staff also recommends that the City of Oldsmar Land Development Code should be amended in the future because these local higher accessibility standards do not provide meaningful benefit to those with physical disabilities while causing added challenge. Reduced regular parking spaces with from 10 feet to 9 feet variance. Per section 15.8.3, the City of Oldsmar Land Development Code, regular parking spaces are required to be 20 feet long and 10 feet wide. Requested parking with variance would allow to decrease the overall impervious area for this site. Granting of the application is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the property rights and does not merely serve as a convenience for the applicant. The future structure is proposed as a warehouse building. According to the applicant, there has been a documented trend over the last 20 years to increase the clear height inside warehouse buildings. The applicant is requesting the height variance so that he can construct a building that meets current demand, and approval for the variance will permit the applicant to construct a building that has 30 feet ceiling clearance for the contemporary warehouse use. Requested parking with variances would allow to decrease the overall impervious area on the site. The request is not the result of an action by the property owner beforehand, and approval of the variance will not confer an applicant a special privilege. Variances to the building height and parking requirements have been granted in the past. The variance is not the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land. However, increasing the clear height to 30 feet inside the warehouse would meet the current demand. Requested parking with variances will improve the overall impervious area and provide more green space. Current M1 zoning allows the impervious ratio of 80%. The applicant is providing a ratio of 59 over the entire site, which means that over 40% of the entire site will remain as green or open space. This request is not based on the applicant's desire to secure a greater financial return. As mentioned earlier, most warehouse construction in the recent years has been of the structures with ceiling clearance of 28 to 36 feet. The applicant is proposing a structure with the 30 feet of clear ceiling height. Approval of the building height variance will not be detrimental or injurious to other property or improvements in the neighborhood in which the property is located. Proposed building will be 37 feet above finished floor elevation, while only parapet will be at elevation 42.7 feet. The parking variance will result in overall impervious reduction for the future site and green space preservation. In addition, to improve future connectivity in the city, the applicant also agreed to install an 8-foot sidewalk along Brooker Creek Boulevard. The granting of the variance will be in harmony with, serves the general intent and purpose of, and is consistent with the countywide future land use plan, the Oldsmar Comprehensive Plan, and these conditions. These regulations. The granting of the variance shall not constitute an amendment to the Oldsmar Comprehensive Plan, the City of Oldsmar Land Development Code, or to the countywide comprehensive plan. An amendment to another land use category would not be appropriate at this time. Based upon the above discussion and the review against the 10 conditions outlined in section 3.17.3 of the Land Development Code, staff recommends approval of the variance request to increase the building height from 35 feet to 45 feet, and the variance request to reduce the width of ADA parking spaces from 15 feet to 12 feet, and the variance request to reduce the number of ADA parking spaces from 15 spaces to 8 spaces, and the variance request to reduce the width of the regular parking spaces from 10 feet to 9 feet in order to develop a site with a 130 square foot warehouse building in the M1 Limited Manufacturing Zoning District. Thank you.
That was excellent. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. At this time, does the board have any questions to staff?
I got a question. The Oldsmar doesn't, they have nothing to do with the size of the parking lot. That's Pinellas County, because years ago, when Nielsen put in there, they set it up as Tampa. You remember they had to redo all those spaces. So that's a Pinellas County requirement.
Well, it's actually in our code, so, and I listed all the sections from our code. We have to comply with our local land development regulations, where we state that the regular parking space is 10 by 20, and the applicant is asking to reduce it to 9 feet in width.
Right.
based on our local code.
Now, the handicap spots, you haven't,
The handicap spot, in most of the municipalities, the width of the handicap parking space is 12 feet with a 5-foot aisle. Somehow in Oldsmar, in our land development, it is 15 instead of 12. So if you go to Hillsborough County, to Tampa, to Clearwater, it's 12. Florida Building Code, it is 12 in the Florida Building Code. We decided to accommodate maybe larger vehicles, or somehow in the past it was just, I'm not sure what the purpose was. It just makes calculation of
get
the.
out to the side with a
Oh.
wheelchair.
You still have that aisle, so you would still have 5-foot aisle. So current code, again, requires 15-foot space and a 5-foot aisle. Total of 20 feet for the parking space. Most municipalities and Florida Building Code has 12 feet for the width, plus 5, which is 17. So the applicant is asking to cut those 3 feet from each space, basically, and not over the entire site. That reduces the overall impervious area. As you saw, that the maximum allowed by this code is 80%, so 80% of the entire site could be sealed with parking, building. He's only providing 60%, 59%, meaning that 40% of the entire site will stay open with pond and green space.
But it's still county by county decides the size of the spot.
They do. It's not county by county, it's mostly municipality by municipality. So you have to comply to the Florida Building Code standards and the overall accessibility standards, international standards. So we meet those standards, we just exceed them by far. And that access, those 3 feet, they just don't serve any purpose because you already have additional 2-3 feet, on the side plus 5-foot aisle for the accessible.
Okay, so you have larger or more restrictive on your ADA parking than what your ADA and CFR regulations are. So you're wanting 10 foot wide where they said you only have to be 9 foot, so.
For the regular parking spaces,
No,
yes,
and with the handicap,
they're reduced. Regular parking spaces will be reduced to 9 feet instead of 10, yes.
Yeah, because like I said, I did pull up the ADA's regulations,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually national, not just a local or.
Right, international
And
standards, as I
you
mentioned, yes.
They said you, just because the city of Oldsmar wants larger parking spots than required by ADA.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, it's important to note for anybody who may be watching and may have reviewed the way the proposal before you is worded. It should just be made clear that the applicant isn't asking for a variance from the Florida Accessibility Code, which is embedded in the building code, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, nor could this board grant such a variance because those are state and federal laws. So really, while the report says it's a variance from ADA, it's really not. It's just a variance from the parking
City of Oldsmar.
size for the parking
So it's a
space.
variance from the city, not from the
That's-
ADA.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
That was my,
Yes.
if it
This-
didn't come out correct, that's what
This site will meet the ADA compliance, the international code, yes.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Good discussion. And I just finished with the ordinance review committee board. And if the city's recommended that, did that get in? Do we know if that
I don't know.
recommendation got into the city
The
council?
question you're about to ask is the one I'm about to ask,
Okay.
that exact.
Yeah, I mean, it's recommended, so I'm wondering if staff got that into the, city council because they're redoing the ordinances right now.
They have a work session on it tomorrow night.
Okay.
Do we know if they know about this one?
About the meeting tonight?
No, if they know about the recommendation from staff to amend the city ordinance. Not
We are
relevant to-
working right now on updating those ordinances, so we have a list of, they will go to the attorney first, and then they will be presented to the planning board and the city council. So,
What he's asking is, are these recommended changes on your list?
would-
yes,
yeah.
they are on the list of the ordinances, so yes, they
To
are
be
on our
amended.
board of things to be done, yes, thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you.
That's
Because
my
we
question.
realize that it causes hardship for the developers, and every other case that comes in, they're like 15 foot for the handicap parking. Most of them present to us as the 12-foot width for the handicap parking spaces, and then we comment on it, and then they go back, and then they come back, and it's a variance. So it's kind of like a complicated process for us and the developers, so we're trying to just clean up the code a little bit in the future.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, just one more question. Do you know the height of the Nielsen building across the street?
I was going to check that, and I believe it's close to 45 feet as well. So if you need the additional, I can get back with you on that. So
Roughly.
That building in front of it, we turned it down years ago, the height. Remember they wanted to, with the sign and everything?
Right, okay, so I kind of looked like it was a
it's
little
much
over-
higher than
it's higher
35.
than 45
Yes.
feet. So, okay, I didn't know if you knew offhand as a comparison, because this is going to be across the street from the Nielsen. And I know it's industrial area, but we don't want to keep building and building, keep moving things around, so. Okay, so-
Is Nielsen M1?
Yes.
It is.
That's all I have. Anybody else from the board have questions?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to speak on this variance?
If you have questions for us, we'd be happy to. But if you don't have questions.
Okay. Thank you. Take care of that now. Okay, does anybody from the board have questions to the applicant? Thank you. Okay, anybody in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this request? There being none. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to this request? There being none. Okay, the floor is now closed. Okay, and being there's 3 separate variances on this single request, I'd like to do this one at a time, please.
There's 4.
Oh, there's 4? Right, okay, thank you. Okay, the first variance request is a requested variance to increase the building height from 35 to 45 feet.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Second, discussion? Being none? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried all. Second is a variance request to reduce the width of the ADA parking spaces from 15 feet to 12 feet.
Motion to approve.
Motion,
Motion to approve.
Second it.
second. Discussion? There being none? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, carried all. Okay, variance request to reduce the number of ADA parking spaces from 15 to 8 spaces. I have a motion, please.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Discussion?
No.
None? Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried all. A variance request to reduce the width of the regular parking spaces from 10 feet to 9 feet. I have a motion, please.
Make a motion to accept.
A second.
Okay. Discussion?
This is the standard parking from 10 feet down to 9 feet by 18.
This is for a regular parking spot from 10 feet to 9 feet was the variance request.
Yep.
Okay, discussion? There being none? Call for vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carried all? Okay.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, last thing on the agenda was the adjournment.
What was the code on that, by the way? 9 feet. Do you remember Nielsen?
Yeah, they had to repaint the whole lot.
Yeah, that contract.
Motion for adjournment,
Motion for adjournment.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Great news.